Welcome to Father and Son, and welcome to you, Tom, on this Tuesday morning. Still cold weather.
Yes, it is freezing cold.
Now, the carbon tax is out, and the Australian this morning has come out, and Julia is down, the Labor Party's down to 27%. She's dropped a couple of percent as preferred Prime Minister, and they're asking her on AN this morning whether or not, if the polls stay like this, she'll resign. She said no. What do you think?
Well, I don't think she will resign, and I don't think the Labor Party will axe her the way they axed Kevin Rudd, because I think they're pretty much run out of options. And I'm not sure right now, to be honest, if I was a potential Labor leader contender, whether I'd want the job, because it seems pretty clear they're going to lose the next election. Well, what is interesting though, it's not all going quite so well for Tony Abbott either, because he said he'll get rid of he'll get rid of the carbon tax, but of course with the carbon tax is coming so much compensation that now people are saying, oh well, would you just get rid of the carbon tax and not get rid of the compensation as well? In fact, the compensation now outweighs the tax by several $1 billion for the first few years.
How are they going to balance the budget in 2013?
Well, I asked that question. In fact, I spoke about it with Neil Mitchell on the 3AW morning show. And what we found out is they expect to balance the budget 2012-13, but then the next year after that, the carbon tax compensation really kicks in, and so it will go back into deficit again. So
it's a con job.
It's a dog's breakfast.
Now, I think there's a big rumour in the Savage Club yesterday that Simon Crean might step in as an interim Prime Minister. Very popular fellow, Simon. Good quality man. Doesn't have a lot of charisma, but he'd be a much better leader than what they've got there now.
Well, maybe, but I mean, Simon Crean has been leader of the Labor Party before. He lost an election. He was never.
No, he never got to an election.
That's right. He didn't get to an election. He got knifed by Beasley, I think it was. He then got knifed by Rudd, who got knifed by Gillard. It's a nice tradition in Labor politics.
They're always like that in the Labor Party.
They are.
Well, more importantly, the biggest game of football of the year is on Saturday. Carlton play Collingwood. It's a total sellout. Over 90,000 people will be there. Now, what do you reckon? You going?
Oh yes, I'll be going. It's a Carlton home game. I've got reserve seats, and that's the reason I get
You need reserve seats. It's a total sellout the game.
Well, it's a great tribute to both clubs that, you know, a regular home and away game between Carlton and Collingwood will draw a crowd that in any other league of football around the world would be considered a good crowd for the grand final or equivalent.
Exactly.
It will be between 88 and 95,000 depending on how many members turn up. You'd have to say that Collingwood is clearly the form team of the competition. They destroyed North Melbourne by almost 20 goals last week.
$1.13 this morning in the press, and Carlton $6. Good bet at $6.
They are.
If Carlton had their full team in, I reckon they'd give them a real shake. But with the fullback Jamison out, with Waite injured, Carazzo injured, O'Halpin is injured, they're not going to be quite at full strength, and they now could go out of the top four.
Yeah.
So we need to get these good players back.
Well, and of course Carlton has dropped 2 games that it shouldn't have dropped over the past 3 weeks against the West Coast Eagles and the Western Bulldogs.
Only because of injuries, however.
Well, you know, injuries are part and parcel of football. I mean, you know, if you have depth in your side, injuries shouldn't be an issue. Collingwood gets injuries, but it doesn't seem to stop them. Anyway, it will be a great game. It's always a great day, and it's I guess it's a tribute to the AFL. Of course, the AFL is having its own issues at the moment. They're still trying to sort out the issue of player salaries. I meant to ask you about this. I mean, do you think football players should earn even more than what they currently do?
Well, I think they're only seeking a 10% increase in their pay.
Yeah.
But the other things they want are pensions when they turn 65, bigger superannuation, a lot of these benefits that will protect the players after they go out of the game. I think they're probably entitled to about 25% of the gross take of the AFL.
It's very hard for Andrew Demetriou to argue against it, because he, of course, his pay's gone since 2004 when he started as CEO of the AFL. He's gone from roughly $500,000 per annum to now $2.1 million per annum. So his pay's gone up 4 times. Now the players' pay has not gone up by that much in the last 7 years. So I think on that basis, but you know, it's like any person who runs a business. You know, you want to pay yourself as much as you can while keeping your costs, in this case the players, down to a minimum. I think they'll have to reach an agreement soon.
They will. Now, what's the story about Westpac that you were talking to me off air about?
Well, it's very funny. A lot of people are probably aware. Westpac 2 years ago now took over St George. And St George has been quite a strong bank in New South Wales, less so in Queensland. It's always struggled a bit in Victoria. Now, I'm a St George customer, And Westpac also in the mid-1990s bought the Bank of Melbourne and then famously or infamously shut it down just a few years later. They've decided to relaunch the Bank of Melbourne using St George. So all St George banks in...
All the branches in Victoria of St George
will become Bank of Melbourne.
Melbourne.
So that's all good, you know, people remember the Bank of Melbourne, cut the cost of banking and all that. But a document has been released at the Westpac board level which describes Melbourne as a provincial city.
What a disgrace.
Now, Melbourne's the second biggest city in Australia. It's got
And growing the fastest.
highest proportion of migrants. To call it provincial, I think, is not going to go down well amongst people in Melbourne. We live in Melbourne. I don't like being described like that. So all I'm saying is...
Particularly by people in Sydney.
Particularly by people in Sydney. So Westpac, for all they want to relaunch the Bank in Melbourne, have done themselves an enormous disservice by describing their intended customer base as being provincial. Who knows, maybe we don't need banks because we're probably not smart enough or rich enough to even use them.
Well, I don't think we want the bank. I'd say to all the people watching this, don't go to Westpac, change your bank to the ANZ or National, which operate out of this provincial city.
That's right, with local provincial people running them who understand your needs.
Righto, what else is on the agenda?
Well, there's all sorts of things. The issue of sin taxes is coming up because the carbon tax is being treated a bit like a sin tax, but it's made me look at other things. Now, you know, cigarettes for years have had all these terrible labels on them, and here in Australia we're going to plain paper packaging. In Finland, they're thinking...
outrageous too.
Well, it is. In Finland, they're thinking about making cigarettes prescription only. So someone like you, who's a heavy smoker, would have to go and register with a doctor as a registered addict, and only then could you buy cigarettes. And of course, here in Australia, I think as of next week, if my memory serves me correctly, alcohol is going the same way. They're going to have all these warning signs on bottles of wine and so forth. I mean, the term nanny state gets chucked around a lot there, but I mean, did you think you'd see in your life, you know, people blaming the purveyors of drink or the purveyors of cigarettes for health problems which are ultimately caused by the people who choose to consume such things?
No, I think, you know, the level of regulation in our society is dreadful. I'm glad that I've lived in a time, see, I'm getting on a bit, where we didn't have that regulation, and when I look at my grandchildren, they're going to have a very tough time. They'll be lucky to be allowed to walk down the street without getting permission.
Well, that's right. And you know, the thing with drinking is, or with smoking, everybody knows that smoking's bad for you. No one could possibly, who's alive today, say, oh, I had no idea. So, you know, it seems to me that you should be able to do what you want with that knowledge. And the same with drinking. I mean, everybody knows if you drink too much, it's probably not the best thing. Debate, you know, goes on about whether it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 glasses a day. But the point is, we know. I don't believe it's the state's role to treat us like we're children. We're old enough to vote. We're allowed to select government, serve in the military, have children, do all sorts of things. We don't need the state telling us, you know, what is the right amount to drink.
I couldn't agree with you more. You know, once you become an adult, you should be left to your own devices. And the problem is that governments are the worst people to tell you anything anyway. Because I don't find that, I used to make a speech years ago when I was heavily involved in politics. They should have a couple of sessions of Parliament just to remove laws, not to create new ones.
Absolutely. I agree, and I think that no new law should be introduced without one being got rid of. There's a number of laws should be capped. Anyway, that's not going to happen in our lifetimes. If you enjoy a drink, stock up, because soon you'll have to look at some terrible labels. Same goes with cigarettes and, well, just about anything else. Fast cars will probably be the next thing.
I think the cigarette one's going to be a real battle, because going to, you know, sort of packaging without any labelling on it is infringing the rights of the cigarette companies worldwide.
Look, Philip Morris and British American Tobacco aren't trying to sue the government for this, but you know what? Governments can pass pretty much whatever laws they want. I very much doubt they'll succeed. There isn't much of a public support for big tobacco, as they're saying. But I'm just saying it's thin edge of the wedge. It was cigarettes, now it's alcohol.
Yep.
Who knows what's next?
All right, well, we'll find out what happens next, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you for watching.